In this video, I'm going to walk you through deploying Grafana and Prometheus into a Kubernetes cluster using the package manager called Helm. All right, so what is Grafana and Prometheus? So both of these two pieces of software combine to create a monitoring solution, a monitoring stack. So Prometheus, what it does is it basically captures metrics from some cloud infrastructure. Okay. In this case, we're going to be capturing metrics from the actual Kubernetes cluster. And what Prometheus does is it is a time series database. So it's going to insert a lot of different metrics inside of the database so that we can use a tool like Grafana. Grafana is a visualization software. It allows us to configure Prometheus as a data source so we can visualize the data that Prometheus is capturing. So Prometheus captures metrics in a given piece of infrastructure, and Grafana is going to display it, visualize it for us. We're going to be using a command line tool called EKS to actually deploy the cluster and update our local configurations to access the cluster. And we're going to see how all that is done. And it's actually implemented with a very few lines of code here, which basically is this. So the very first step in getting all this done is creating the EKS cluster. So we do that by using that EKS command that I mentioned. This utility is created by Weaveworks, and it uses CloudFormation under the hood. And this line right here basically allows us to spin up an EKS cluster, gives the cluster a name, region, and it allows us to specify the EC2 instance type, which is like the compute service that actually the Kubernetes is going to be running on, and allows us to define how many worker nodes are available. So those worker nodes are going to be what's actually running the application. So that's what this line does right here. I've already done that because it takes about 20 minutes to deploy, and nobody's got time for that. So this next command is going to be updating the Kubernetes access. And that Kubernetes access is defined through a local file called kubeconfig. Kubeconfig. And so when you use a managed service like EKS, there's an API call called update kubeconfig. So AWS EKS update kubeconfig that will basically update that local file for you so that you can reach out and communicate to that cluster so that we can continue to run these commands. So that's been done also. Okay, so the next step is going to be in adding the Helm repositories. So a repository with Helms, it allows us to deploy applications into these Kubernetes clusters. Okay. One thing you should know about Kubernetes, an application can have lots of files associated with it. So this repo basically just allows us to. So in a lot of it, a lot of these applications are they're repetitive. So once you deploy it once, you can deploy it again and again. So as long as you have like the base configuration. So that's kind of what this allows us to do. Instead of running a dozen commands to install some software, we Helm allows us to have all those bundled into a repo, uh, and included in what's called a chart, and we can just install that chart into the Kubernetes cluster and deploy the application. So I mean, I know that sounds a lot. Moral of the story is, we need to have a repo in order to deploy applications from that vendor into the Kubernetes cluster. I hope that makes sense. So what we want to do now is just want to add this repo. So we added to the Prometheus community repository. Okay, so now what we want to do also next is we want to create a namespace for this application to run. So we have a cluster at large. Okay, so in order just to allocate resources only to this monitoring deployment that we're going to do, we want to create what's called a namespace. So basically, you have a cluster at large, and so a namespace basically allows you to create like a virtual a cluster within a cluster. So it's a cluster within a cluster. Okay, so that this Prometheus monitoring application can use all the resources in this namespace. So it's just a way to fence off our resources in a cluster. Okay, so we want to go ahead and just create this namespace. So for the Prometheus stack, so we did that here. Okay, so we already did that. Okay, um, so the next thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and install a repo, or actually install the Helm charts. Um, so from that repo, so we want to use this command right here. So Helm install stable Prometheus community. So this line right here, basically. So this is coming from this Prometheus community here. Okay, so that's all this is. So this is just deploying the actual stack. So the Prometheus and Grafana. Okay, so this may take a moment to actually deploy, but we'll see that happen here in a little bit. It's going to give us a statement here in a moment. And I think this takes about like a minute or so. Okay, we should see that updating soon. So after this is deployed, we're just going to take a look at all the resources here. All of the Kubernetes resources that have been created for this application. So look, it just finished. It gave us this statement. So that Helm chart is deployed. So we're able to verify all of the pods that are going to be running inside of that deployment. So let's take a look at that. All right, so 33 seconds. So this just got deployed. So this particular monitoring stack, it has the Grafana for visualization. It has the Prometheus for just capturing the metrics, and it also has this other service called Alert Manager, which we'll get into in another video. But everything looks like it's running just great. So let's take a look at the services also. Okay, so we have all the services up and running as well. Okay, so one thing we want to also do is we want to be able to access the front end. So Grafana basically is the front end that once configured, it's gonna pull those metrics from that data source, which is Prometheus. So with these Helm charts, a lot of that's already been pre-configured for you. So that's another reason why you want to use it. But so in order to access the cluster, or actually to access the Grafana, we want to use this command here. It's called port forwarding. So it's just basically going to allow us to access this Grafana user interface locally. Okay, and so Grafana is running on port 3000, and by default. And so we want to say, hey, we want to access Grafana on port 3000 of our local. Map that 3000 to our local machine to the 3000 port that's actually listening to running in that cluster. So let me just kind of just show you what that means basically. So All right, so we port forwarding. So this Grafana container or this Grafana pod that's running in Kubernetes is actually being forwarded to our local machine on port 3000. So that's what this is now. So if I refresh this, okay, that's what's happening here, and we can see the statements happening right now. So it's handling connection for 3000. Okay, so let's just go ahead and log in with these default settings, or username and password. So you see with this Helm chart, these steps have already been completed. It's already added our data source, which is Prometheus. It's already added our first dashboard. So that's what this Helm chart came pre-configured with all of that. Otherwise, you would have to, set that up yourself. Which I have a video or some posts that actually gonna get into this. But what we want to do here is we want to go ahead and use pre-configured Docker, or rather Grafana dashboards that are going to allow us to quickly capture metrics from the EKS cluster. So with Grafana, you can actually import dashboards. So I've actually kind of taken a liberty to go ahead and do this for us. So when you import a dashboard, there is an ID that you can that you'll get, and in this case, the dashboard that out of the box will allow us to visualize EKS metrics. This is going to be this one, 15760. So if we hit load, so this is going to allow us to view Kubernetes resources, the number of pods, and so forth. And it's going to ask us for a Prometheus data source. So we want to hit this Prometheus. Okay. So that's the pod that's actually already running. So that's Prometheus here. It's this one. So Grafana is this one, and Prometheus is this one. So these are actually up and running. So we want to use that Prometheus as a data source. So we want to say import. And yeah, so I mean this pod just started. So we have out of the box, we can see like the CPU utilization on the pod. So excuse me, the CPU utilization on the node. Actually, let's see here. Yeah, so this is like node. So let's just take a look and see. Let's just run a quick command here to see how things match up. So if we just do like let me see, clear, and this thing kubectl. Get nodes dash n Prometheus. So we have we don't need to. So this 44 EC2 internal, 44 EC2 internal. So this is right here. So just get nodes. We actually don't need that. We just need to get nodes here. So yeah. So this is the nodes that are being captured right here. See, so it's running on this pod is actually running on this node. Okay, so that's how easy it is to deploy a monitoring stack like Kubernetes onto EKS. Okay, I'll be doing additional videos into monitoring, but I just wanted to make a quick video showing you how easy it is to deploy this monitoring stack onto EKS. So we can start getting into further more complex configurations, configuring alerts or even other applications we can monitor with Grafana. So let me know if this video has been helpful, or even what other content you want to see. Also, please like and share my channel if you want to see more information like this. But I definitely appreciate your viewership, and we'll talk to you in the next video. Thank you.